Okay, it's 3 o'clock. We're probably expecting a few more people to pop in as we get started, but I'll just do a quick introduction. We're doing a series of ongoing training. We've already did overcoming objections with TRICOR, and now we're doing ransomware today, which is the #1 cause of data breaches. I'm Jeff Goldman. I'm in Baltimore, Maryland, rainy Baltimore, Maryland. And we're going to also have on presenting Ellie Feldman, who is the managing director of Wingman Insurance. And we want to wish everybody a very healthy and happy, great holiday season. And we wish you wonderful 1/1s coming up, and we hope to see you guys binding a lot of policies for 1/1, and hopefully what we're going to teach you today will help you with that. So without further ado, oh, by the way, we are recording this session, so you can take notes or not take notes. I'll be sending this out to everybody. I'll send the slides out and the recording. So without further ado, here's Ellie.
Well, thank you, Jeff. That was a great introduction. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. As Jeff mentioned today, we're just going to focus on one topic in cyber. And I have to say, if you're going to talk to your clients about any one topic regarding cyber, this would be the one I would hit. It is the catchword of cyber right now. It's what all the articles are being written about. You're going to see a lot of news about it. And so I hope that this gives you all a comfort level in talking about this particular cyber topic or cyber in general. As a housekeeping item, I really hope you guys will ask questions throughout the whole presentation. It will really help us understand more, and hopefully you guys as well. So keep your questions coming, and I hope we can all learn a lot today. All jokes aside, cyber has been evolving over the last decade into a serious topic for clients big and small. And this cartoon, as well as many others, I'm going to show you throughout the presentation. And if you'd like this and the other slides for your own materials, we're happy to provide them. But it just shows how it's become a hot topic in pop culture and everything else, where cyber has become a buzzword that's making everybody want to think. So I hope we help you with that. Another funny joke that we love to talk about around the office is, just how many things in our lives are open to a cyber breach. Oftentimes we don't think about all the things that we touch over the course of a day that could be hacked. And ransomware is the favored tool today to do it. So this is sort of our joke on the internet ransomware of things, which I think is great. Now, cybercrime is something that you guys are seeing everywhere, and there's lots of data out there. Wrapping up 2019 as we are, the data starting to really flow in from this year, just how big of an uptick cyber has been, and how big of an uptick purchasing cyber insurance has been. So we hope that these statistics and many others can help you guys sell. And another thing that we think is really fascinating as a resource for you guys, while the FBI isn't new to helping out with these ransomware incidents, they are getting wise to helping customers understand how to combat them. We're going to talk a little bit more about how the FBI is involved in an actual ransomware incident, but they're actually putting out a lot of material to show that they're trying to stay on top of it as best any of us can. Okay, let's get into the meat of today. What is ransomware? So ransomware is essentially a computer virus that gets on your device that locks you out of your devices. And if they're networked together, it's a cascade effect where any device that's networked together can be affected. Your computer is essentially encrypted, and what that basically means is your password locked out of it. And you have to pay someone an actual ransom amount in Bitcoin typically, to get the password for your own computer, your own network, your own server, etc. And what we're seeing is that the demands for the ransoms are going higher and higher and higher as the years go on, and these events are becoming more and more frequent. So that is what ransomware is. Now that you're going to see another term when talking about ransomware, and sometimes insurance policies use these things interchangeably, which they shouldn't because they're absolutely two different terms. Cyber extortion is different in that it's the threat essentially of a ransomware attack or a threat of what looks like a ransomware attack. It's a threat to either disclose your information or lock you out of your information or anything like that. The actual attack doesn't even have to occur. Now, a good cyber policy is going to cover both the ransomware incident or the threat of a ransomware incident, because believe it or not, those are legally two different things. But it is important to understand the difference between the extortion cyber crime and the actual ransomware event, which can happen in tandem, but usually don't. So very simply, extortion is the credible threat of an attack. Ransomware is the actual attack itself with the intent and the actual delivery on a ransom demand. All right, how does ransomware work exactly? How do you explain this to your customer? Why is it going to matter to them? First and foremost, a ransomware attack starts with a typical everyday person. You, your colleague, your client sitting at their computer, and either they're opening an email, attachment or otherwise, or they're clicking on a URL. It could be a link on Facebook. That's a big one. It can just be a link from a search result. It can be many different things. It can be a link in an email. And when you click on that link or you open that attachment, a computer virus is downloaded onto your computer without your knowledge. You would have absolutely no way of knowing that the site you just visited or the email you just opened was malicious in any way. Now, this virus can sit on your computer almost indefinitely and do nothing. Or the ransomware can essentially flip a switch, turn on the encryption that is embedded in that virus, and lock you out of all of your devices. A big black skull and bones screen has become the norm for the ransom demand. That's what it typically looks like, but that's not the only way that it looks. But what it will say is always roughly the same. A message will appear demanding that you pay a specific bank account, usually overseas, almost always overseas, or most likely a Bitcoin account in Bitcoin. And when you pay them, they will then send you a very long string of characters that are what is called an encryption key. Without that encryption key, you cannot access any of your files on your computer. You can't even turn it on. You can't look around. It becomes essentially a brick. You have a few options when you're dealing with a ransomware attack. Most commonly, this is where the FBI gets involved. And believe it or not, they tend to usually know who the ransomer is. I don't know how they can tell this information. They're not sharing it, but they tend to know who they are. They work, and then if you have an insurance policy, they'll work with the insurance company and the ransom company that you contract with to negotiate and pay the ransom and get the encryption key. Some clients will have backup systems. Many times when you have downloaded a piece of malware onto a computer and it sits for a long time, it then has time to infect any backups that you have. And thus, if you try to just ignore the ransomer and bring up your data from your backup, the ransom would just happen all over again because the bad code was on that as well. Sometimes that isn't the case and you're able to spin up your data from your backup and off you go, ransom never paid. More times than likely in today's ransomware attacks, depending on how much they're asking for, it's actually best to pay the ransom. So if you don't pay the ransom and you don't have a backup, they delete all of your data, never to be seen or heard again. If you pay the ransom, there's like a 90-something% likelihood that they actually give you the proper encryption key and you're back up and running in no time after some scans to get rid of any bad or malicious code on your computer systems. And that's how it works. It's a low cost, low touch cybercrime that can be implemented from anywhere in the world, and usually happens via a phishing scheme, which means like somebody sends an email to thousands and thousands of people, hoping that a few people click on it, and more than a few people usually do. Questions? All right, let's talk about how ransomware impacts your customer. The average cost of a ransomware attack to the most recent data that we have is $133,000. That number is likely going up. We can tell you from personal experience and our own claims history that the actual dollar amount demanded is going up, but that's not even really where the cost is. The cost can be in the data forensics, in the lawyers, in the negotiation process, in all of the different services needed to pay the ransom or choose not to pay the ransom in the limited amount of time that they give you. So we anticipate when we get the new sets of data early next year that number will be higher. And what's scarier even than that is that ransomware attacks have increased 97%. And that's insane. It is absolutely the most skyrocketing cybercrime, and all reports indicate that it is going to get even worse next year. We will talk about some ways at the end of this that we're all trying to combat that, but it's what's happening and we're working on it. The best piece of data I can give you guys as a tool to help you sell is that a new organization or business will be hit every 14 seconds with a ransomware attack. And they expect in 2 years that number to increase to every 11 seconds. A different business in the world is getting hit with a ransomware attack. As if that wasn't bad enough, when a ransomware attack hits, it usually takes roughly 10 days to get a business back to full functionality. Now that's an average. Most of the time, sometimes it can take longer, sometimes it can take shorter, but the lost income from those 10 days is another unanticipated expense that if you don't have insurance could be very detrimental to a business. There are no industries that are safe from ransomware attacks. We've seen them in agriculture, real estate, shipping, and trucking. We've seen them in a lot of different things, and we're going to talk about very specific examples in just a minute. And that the average cost right now for this calendar year, they anticipate ransomware costing businesses worldwide $75 billion. So small businesses, large businesses, it doesn't matter. Although I will say that small businesses to medium-sized businesses are targeted as much as large businesses because they have less security and less employee training to prevent these attacks from happening. On the screen that you guys are seeing now is a one sheet that we've put together with a lot of the data that we just discussed. If Jeff hasn't sent that to you guys already, I'm sure he'll be sending it to you after this meeting. It's a great way to pull snippets for your social media or to talk to clients or to leave behind in a meeting just to make sure that your insureds know how important this really is. All right, so let's talk about the chain reaction of the financial impact of a ransomware attack. Let's start at the top. Whether or not to pay the ransom, that costs money. Whether it be hiring a data expert to look at your backups to see if they're viable, or whether it's paying a ransomware specialty company to negotiate and or pay the ransom on your behalf. And then on top of that is the actual ransom payment. That's all part of this and the cost of a ransomware attack. We already alluded to the fact that the business income loss from being unable to work is a huge financial impact of a ransomware attack. But let's think about a few others. The reputational harm of a business. Let's say, for example, you insure an accounting firm and they have a ransomware attack on the 10th of April and thus are unable to file taxes because they can't access their systems, their records, their data. What is that going to do for their clients on a going forward basis? They're obviously going to have to notify clients that this happened because their taxes aren't going to get done on time. What is that going to do for the reputation of their business? That's a huge loss for a business. There's a potential liability claim. And in this case, that's where, let's say you're a data heavy company, a doctor's office, for example, and you have a ransomware claim. Well, technically speaking, That means a bad actor has been in your computer system playing around with your data. You then have to hire a data forensics person to find out which records were looked at, if any were downloaded, notify those customers should you need to do that, and what's worse, be open to a class action lawsuit for having been the reason why someone's health data is out in the world. That isn't limited to health data, that's just one example. And what we're seeing in some businesses, unfortunately, is that a ransomware, when you don't have insurance for it, can be so costly that the business has to shut down because these costs pile up so very quickly. So what happens when you suspect a ransomware attack? The first thing I would recommend you guys tell all of your insureds to do, or you do with your insureds when they believe it's happening, is to call the free data breach hotline that is provided by the Access policy should they have one. This is the most important step in the process. These people know exactly what to do to deploy the resources that these customers need to minimize the impact of a ransomware attack. The breach coach takes over the whole process. They work with the insured to make sure that every piece of the puzzle is being attacked simultaneously. You get the claims people involved, the ransomware specialists involved, the data people involved, all of the things that we previously discussed. The determination on whether or not to pay the ransom happens really quickly. What happens is they're going to look at the backup to see if it's viable, or if there's no backup, they're then going to reach out to the FBI because there are limitations on who you can pay. Sad as it might be, because they're able to identify roughly who these ransomers are, they're able to say this is a state actor or not, or this is a bad actor that has ties to, say, a terrorist organization or not, because it is illegal to pay a ransom to a foreign government or a terrorist organization. And so the FBI gets involved at this point to basically tell you if you can pay the ransom or not. It's screwed up, but that's how it works. The insurance company then negotiate with the actual ransomers to try to decrease the cost of the payment. They're then going to get the cryptocurrency and pay for that ransom. And then the business itself usually receives the encryption key, and the data people that are hired by the insurance company will help de-encrypt the data, get the systems back up and running, clean the systems of any potential malware so it doesn't happen again, and hopefully set up some protections so that nobody else can get in. Questions? You can just shout them out. Okay, I want to talk to everybody about real world examples, ransomware attacks that have actually happened, news you can use, if you will. We're going to be coming out with an email tomorrow with even more examples of things like this for you guys to sift through. Let me just tell you that Google it and choose your, put in whatever city or state you're in and type ransomware attacks, and I guarantee you'll find some results. So if you're looking for more examples, it's easier to find than you would think. A common theme that you might have noticed is the doctors are a very attractive ransomware target. That is probably because they can afford to pay, or ransomers think they can afford to pay, and they have little or no security on their computers, which is not ideal. This particular practice in Michigan had a number of doctors, a part of it, that they decided not to pay the ransom. It was a tiny amount that they were asking for, $6,500, relatively speaking, but the total cost of recreating their data, notifying customers that their data was out there, being down for the amount of time that they were down, etc., it absolutely shut down the business. And it's a terribly sad story that gives us a lot of lessons about what ransomware can possibly look like. Yes, sometimes the demands may be small. Sometimes they're large. We saw a set of doctors' offices. I want to say they were in Illinois. They got hit with a $900,000 demand. So sometimes it's big, sometimes it's small, but it doesn't matter. The fallout, all the other costs are extremely high. Sadly, sometimes paying the ransom is the best policy. But the biggest lesson here is if they'd had a cyber policy in place, they wouldn't have been alone in making that determination. They would have had all the information and resources that they need to make the best decision for themselves. Some more examples. These are in Ohio. A ransomware attack was discovered, and what's fascinating about this one was they used a fax machine to send in the ransom demand, but they had already shut down the computers. And it took them so long to figure out how to get access back to their computer systems that they lost just hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue. And it's just another example of, regardless of what type of company you have, whether it's the lost income or the ransom demand itself, the costs just keep piling up. One of the more fascinating examples we're seeing all over the place are municipalities that are being hit with ransomware attacks. And I think we're hearing about them more often because you can't hide them. 22 cities and towns in the state of Texas were hit simultaneously with the exact same ransomware attack all at once. The demand was 2.5 million total. And you might wonder how they figured this out. Well, nobody could pay their utility bills online. What's fascinating about this particular breach is much like the Target breach that you guys might have read about years and years ago with the credit cards. This one came in from an outside contractor that many of the municipalities in Texas were working with. He had the ransomware on his computer, and by working on the computers of so many of the different municipalities, he basically seeded it all over town without realizing it. And honestly, they don't know what the total cost was for downtime and lost income and things like that. They're still trying to figure that out, but it took a really long time to get everybody up and running and was a mess. And of course, the biggest one in the news for Jeff and I, who are from the Baltimore area, is the moronic decision of the city of Baltimore, where they had a $76,000 ransom demand that they opted not to pay. That's going to cost them at least $18 million when it's all said and done. Now, obviously, nobody is condoning paying a ransomer, but that's ridiculous. And now they're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in insurance from this point forward because they didn't have any cyber coverage in place for the city of Baltimore. It was months untangling things and continues to be an absolute mess in the city of Baltimore. And these are just a few examples that have happened in the last few months of ransomware attacks that have impacted small companies, small towns, or big cities and big companies that run the gamut of what ransomware could potentially look like for your insureds. So let's talk about what a good cyber policy has to offer. Well, top of mind has to be that 24/7 breach hotline. Who knows when these ransomware attacks are coming in, but it's really great to know that you've got somebody in your corner whenever it happens to make sure you make the best decisions possible. You want a carrier that is responsive, that has an in-house claims department that knows how to handle these things and that will pay the ransom and has paid the ransom in the past, so that if that's the ultimate decision, it gets handled correctly. Coverage has to include ransomware and extortion coverage because they do tend to be a little bit different. Make sure that however a policy is worded, it includes both. And obviously, I can assure you that the Wingman policy covers both. As an added benefit, one of the new coverage highlights that we've recently come out with is something to help combat ransomware attacks, and that's called extortion threat reward reimbursement. It's a really silly name for saying that if anybody knows anything about who the ransomer is or how it happened, and it leads to the arrest of the ransomer, we will pay them up to $250,000 as a reward. We are trying to stem the flow of ransomware attacks, and insurance companies getting involved in that is one great step. And finally, as we've talked about, business interruption and extra expense coverage is vital to the health of a business in the event of a ransomware attack. And a policy needs to have both first and third party business interruption coverage for a data breach, meaning your systems go down due to ransomware, or a service that you rely on goes down due to ransomware and you don't lose any income from it. The best example I can give you guys is imagine if your agency management system goes down. for weeks at a time and you have no access to client files or anything else because everything is digitized now. How do you service those clients? How do you handle everything that you need to handle if you don't have email and you don't have, access to your client files? You shouldn't have to lose money as a business because of somebody else's ransomware attack. So that's a really important coverage to have. All right, I think I've efficiently scared everybody. So let's talk about a few things that we can do to make businesses feel more secure and a few things that you can talk to your clients about to make everybody feel like they're being proactive to prevent ransomware. Computer backups are vital. Even if they're not 100% viable, oftentimes they are usable and are the best defense to a ransomware attack. Larger clients are going to have more sophisticated ways to handle them, whether it be sophisticated anti-malware or ransomware software, early threat detection systems, or network segmentations, meaning that different employees only have access to different segments of your computer network. Small to medium-sized businesses are not going to operate like that. Anti-malware or antivirus software is about as good as you're going to get for them, but that's a great first step. Security scanning is a really great additional tool. But the two most important things to talk to your customers about is training and education. The more the businesses talk about the threat of cyber breaches, the less of a chance it's actually going to occur. Teaching employees to think before clicking and also notify people in power if they think they've clicked on something inappropriate or wrong is going to make all the difference in the world.
Okay, Ellie, we do have a question here.
Yep, hit me.
How often are cyber criminals caught and prosecuted? Is there a percentage? Has the reward system been paid out so far to someone reporting a crime?
Anna, that's a great question, and that we don't really have the answer to. I feel like the FBI might have better information on that than we do. It's something that we need to look into and learn more about. I think it's getting better, but they don't have a clear-cut way to do it. And we have just started offering this reward coverage, so it'll be really easy. But I do know that a precursor to getting that reward coverage is an actual arrest. And so I haven't actually seen that happen yet. So I will stay tuned and let you guys know as soon as that does happen, how that all works to make sure that everybody can take advantage of it. Great question. Okay. My last little joke to everybody is just that as much as we want to work towards cybersecurity, human error is the universal factor. It's frustrating. It's really annoying. There's really nothing we can do about it. The more we talk about it, the better chance we have of preventing employees from, say, for example, clicking on ads in Facebook this time of year. Online shopping at their desk is a really important part of our jobs this time of year, but it's really bad for your company's cybersecurity. So stay aware and stay vigilant. That's the best thing I can offer. We do have some new training modules available for any Access insured. You're going to learn more about this after the first of the year, but if anybody wants access to employee training, then there are lots of great opportunities to do that. We're partnering with a company called Ransomware, and all you need to do is email somebody from Wingman telling us the name of the insured that wants access and their email address, and we are happy to set people up with these business portals to get people up to speed on how to prevent cybercrime.
It's a little bit.
Sorry? I think we had a question. I'm not sure what it was, but feel free to chime in. We've got some additional coverages that we're offering that we think are important to discuss. Social engineering and its partner in crime invoice manipulation. first and third party business interruption that has to do with system downtime or system failure, not related to a cyber crime. These are all offered in the policy now, and I want to make sure everybody's up to speed on them. If you have any questions about them, please let me know, but we're going to be doing a lot more training. We're going to do a lot more training in the new year on all of these things. And of course, all the business interruption coverage that you can for both first and third party is not going to go amiss for your clients. So with that, we're hitting our time. Who's got questions? I want to answer as many as I can.
Anybody have any questions for Ellie while she's here? Remember, you're just having a data breach coach on retainer is almost worth the cost of the policy for your customer.
Certainly by the hour it is. These lawyers aren't cheap.
Okay, well, I want to thank everybody. I am going to be sending out the slides, the recording, and the ransomware sheet that Ellie showed in the presentation. Please reach out to us, use the chat hotline on the Wingman platform if it's if you have any questions or concerns at all. And once again, Happy New Year, happy holiday season, and we'll look forward to seeing lots of 1-1 binds from TRICOR. Have a good afternoon.